Thank you all for coming. I am so pleased to have Anthony and Dani from MegaCrit, two of the people working on the hit game Slay the Spire. Would you like to say a bit about yourselves?
Sure. My name's Anthony Giovanetti. I co-founded MegaCrit, made Slay the Spire 1 and 2, and before that did StimHack, which was a big Netrunner fan site, strategy site. Slay the Spire's been my life for the last, feels like forever. So it will be the thing that I am remembered for. So, yeah.
I always hope, this is the thing you're known for now, but maybe you'll go on to do bigger and greater things.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Hi, I'm Danielle. I've worked on the implementation side of I think most of the projects Anthony has worked on, StimHack and Slay the Spire. I did all the packaging for shipping it and the save system, bugs and support and all that.
Cool. So I've had the pleasure of knowing Anthony and Danielle for actually quite a while now. I think Anthony was a really big fan of Manifold early on, which I really appreciate. Hanging out in our Discords and asking us questions about Manifold. One thing that was really surprising to me early on was noting that the two of you kind of work together, but also are married. And how do you manage that? What does that look like? How did it look like starting out, and how does it look like now?
Sure. So actually, a lot of people ask us this question, and it's kind of a thing where people are surprised, how do you work with your wife and everything's okay and you don't fight and stuff? And honestly, the answer is just, I don't know, we work really well together. There's not I have a strategy and this is how it works. It's just we're super compatible. We're both weird and kind of autistic in some ways, and then we can just work from home, and we each have a separate office, and we're not right next to each other, and I don't know, it just works, and she's a pleasure to work with, so that makes it easy. I'm hopefully not too terrible, so
Yeah, I'd say it's easy.
Skill differently, I guess. I don't know.
Now I'm feeling I'm getting mugged or something like that. I guess I was working with my wife Rachel for a while on Mana Fund, and it's not exactly that we stop being able to work together in some sense, but I don't know. It's do you not feel you're together too much, or have too many things to get?
I don't know. So we've been together for 15 years now. So, and I kind of feel in many ways we have a very, very high degree of compatibility, and that's probably very helpful. It's probably super useful when you're working with someone where she can kind of auto-complete my thoughts in a lot of ways. So I think that makes it really easy if she already knows kind of what I'm thinking. Synchronizing on stuff is trivial, and just makes it simple.
Yeah.
Can you set the record straight? Which one is easier, single player or multiplayer? End those arguments.
Multiplayer is definitely easier. I think 2-player specifically is maybe slightly more difficult, but anyway, we can get to that.
I think it depends on your friends.
True.
So that if you're co-oping with good friends, then it's easier, and bad friends it's harder, basically?
I mean, realistically, in 4-player, so just because of how the debuffs work, so vulnerable and weak and things like that, if one person applies vulnerable to the enemy, you're all getting the benefit from it, and those kinds of effects stack in a way that's just advantageous. Or if one player gives strength down to the enemy, right? We have things that scale up for the number of players, but they do not offset the power level advantages you can get from having synergies and things like that. So
I'm curious if you have any data on how well co-op has been received. That was in my head the big difference in Slay the Spire 2.
As far as we can tell, it's been very well received. At one point, we were looking at it, and because I can see how many people are playing multiplayer, and some industry analyst was telling me that right now, based on the numbers we're looking at, we had more people playing STS multiplayer than we're playing Call of Duty multiplayer at that time, and I was like, Jesus, that's not what I expected.
And then just I guess probably a lot of STS2 questions. One maybe biggest criticism I heard about Slay the Spire 2 is that it was like maybe like too much more of the same, like very similar to STS1. And in my head, STS1 was this like amazing, like new groundbreaking work of like lots of different game design things that have been like copied endlessly throughout the industry. STS2 was very much like STS1. But what are your thoughts about this line of reasoning?
Yeah, so this is like definitely the hardest thing, like how to do a sequel, but not make it so different that you lose a lot of your audience or change it. Like, a couple different indie games have like taken that route, and usually it doesn't work well. It's not as popular. Like I think Darkest Dungeon 2 was criticized a lot for people not liking all of the big changes that they made, but then also like trying to make it different enough. So we experimented a lot, and like this was a big part of our development, was trying things that were maybe more different and testing and be like, but this is just not as good. So like, yeah, we could make it different, but it would actually like making it different while not just being different for different sake, but actually like meaningfully better is significantly difficult, and how to thread that needle was like a big part of our development. So we did a lot of things that add, but you're not going to do something that's completely transformative, that you change like the core essence of the game, because then it's like it's not a sequel. It's not what people want or expect. And actually we had a ton of people who would be like, actually, I don't even like the changes that were made to the card pools, because I just want to see like, I really miss this card, or why'd you cut this card? This was my favorite card. And be like, okay, well, we're trying to like, so at the end of the day, you're not going to get like a change in that way where everyone is satisfied, and you're trying to navigate it in a way where you're maximizing the enjoyment for the most people. And also you have a lot of new players who have never touched STS at all, and so we're trying to serve those players as well, because that's millions of people, right? So navigating all of that is more like trying to find a sweet spot that you're happy with, than just being like, yes, this is the perfect answer that does everything maximally along all the different ways we can think about it.
Yeah, and I see some parallels to like managing like a a product like Manifold, or like an online community where like anytime you like change a thing, like somebody's gonna get unhappy about it. Overall, I think another one of the things that's like very striking to me about Slay the Spire 1 and now 2 is the like strength of the community, or how much like people like really love the thing and like feel like excited to like make art and like talk online and like share strategies and things like that. What do you attribute to making the community so good in the sense?
This is a hard one. I think for STS1, it was very much like slow organic growth over time, being really reactive to the community, like being a part of it. We'd be in the Reddits, we'd be in the Discord talking to people, we'd reply to all of the little emails and stuff, and then we just kind of like built it over time. And then with 2, I feel like it was almost like so big, it was like just became like the big thing in the gaming zeitgeist for like, especially the initial launch month. And then it has an inertia in and of itself. So it kind of like snowballs. So because like everyone's friends are playing it, then they want to play it, and then everyone's talking about it, and it's like a shared language that everyone can know about. And I'd see these like memes on Twitter that involved STS, and they would just blow up with like tens of thousands of likes. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And it just kind of happens organically because of the size and the immensity it has on its own. And like, we don't need to actually do very much at that point. We just like make a compelling thing that people like with characters that they find interesting. And yeah, it's been kind of just wild to watch it blow up. But like, I don't think that like much of that is some intentional thing that we did outside of just trying to make a product that people like. So.
Yeah.
That's a very startup coded phrase, making a product people like. And I think I appreciate that a lot. That's something else. But maybe I'll take a question there.
Why is Juzu bracelet in the game?
Why is Juzu bracelet in the game?
Juzu bracelet is an effect that a lot of players enjoy, especially more casual players, or players that really enjoy going to question mark nodes and then not seeing the fights. But it's also good to have some relics that are at different power levels, right? Like if every single relic was like equally powerful, it kind of compresses the interestingness of finding a relic. You want the highs and the lows, and that is kind of like the sweet spot.
So jumping into some other, I guess, like STS2 specific questions. What happened with Doormaker? Why remove Doormaker? Is Doormaker coming back?
Yeah, Doormaker. So okay, Doormaker is interesting. The original version of Doormaker that we launched into early access with, I was not happy with, but I was like, oh, we'll change it over time. In STS1, we were constantly changing stuff. So in our beta branch in STS1, we were like releasing daily updates. Like we would just basically push out whatever we had, and then every week we would take everything from beta and push it to main. So I was like, oh, we're just gonna like rapidly iterate on stuff and it'll be fine. And then that is not at all what happened with SCS2. It's like way too big now. And then I learned, okay, well, we need to like go a little slower, do things a little differently this time around. But I was just kind of trying something and seeing what I wanted something that had really interesting micro decisions, and it does have interesting micro decisions. A lot of some of the stronger players would enjoy like.
I love Doormaker.
Right. Yeah. It's fun to figure out, but the thing that ultimately made me remove it was we have this in-game feedback tool where people can submit feedback. And, we get a lot of complaints about Doormaker. It was the single most complained about piece of content. And the thing that made me decide to cut it is the good players would say, oh, this was like the easiest. Well, this is the easiest phase of the fight, and this is the hardest phase. For context, this is the fight that has like 3 different powers and 3 different phases. And what I would notice is we would get a lot of complaints, but the complaints were not concentrated on one phase over the other. A lot of people would go, oh, these other 2 powers that he has, who cares about those? Those don't do anything, but this one's total bullshit and it's completely unfair. And then I'd go to the next piece of feedback and it would be someone saying it about a different phase. And then and actually all 3 of the powers had complaints about it being overpowered, and then that other stuff was not a big deal about it. And so I think it was just kind of over the complexity budget of what I wanted, where people were, it was not good at like teaching a coherent lesson to the player. Like if you go into Time Eater in STS1, you just have the one power to think about, and you can as a player, you can think about how to strategize around that power and that like single mechanic. And that's a lot easier for a player to construct a strategy and like know how to improve upon it. It was hard to know how to improve against Doormaker because a lot of it was, if I watched somebody play, I could see like 10 little micro mistakes they made in the fight, but how, they're not taking those lessons because they're not even noticing those mistakes necessarily. So it was just too much.
Yeah, just on that last point, I actually really like the save scumming feature, the ability to, when you're playing and you like don't quite make it, like try again. And that's like a way in which you can kind of practice to like get the reps and learn more about how to like beat a fight like that. And I'm almost surprised that it's not like, emphasized more or like told more to the player to help them, because it seems like getting better at the game is the thing that you care a lot about, or helping your players care a lot about. So thoughts on that?
So there is a train of thought where what we could have done is had like a button in the game that immediately resets the fight, and then players could use that and like just constantly reset. But I feel like when you do have that in there, it can also create some kind of non-desirable player behaviors where what they'll do is like sometimes they'll just kind of like throw stuff out and be like, oh, it didn't work, and then they'll just mindlessly reset, and they become less so different people can handle it differently. So like maybe you use it more as like a learning tool, but you can also have players who kind of lose their own intentionality in the fight, and then their actual play experience changes with the game. And I've noticed that because there is a deck building roguelike that does do that. Monster Train 2 has a little button to do that. And I found even when I played it, sometimes I was using it in a way where I was like, I don't think I would do that if this button wasn't here, actually. And so I didn't even like the way that it changed the way that I played that game. And so if I was having my play impacted in that way, I knew for sure plenty of people would, so I didn't do it.
Question from the audience, Josh. So the question is, how do we balance Slay the Spire?
Yeah, it's like a combination of an art and a science, but we have tons of metrics for everything. We're looking at lots of data. I can see exactly how much like a card's being picked or the win rates, and just every little piece of data we can look at it. And Danielle actually built a lot of that stuff initially. for STS1. And so a lot of it is I'm looking at that stuff. I'm seeing like, okay, how is this content being received? What are people doing with it? I have like my own taste and judgment on it. And you're kind of like balancing these two things. And then you're also watching what the players are doing. So I'm always like watching streamers and trying to get a sense of what the community's feeling. And it's just like a lot of iteration. I liken it to, it's not like you just come up with the idea and you just like print it out perfectly and it's golden. It's more like I have an idea that's like hopefully somewhat in fine space, and then from there you're like forging at it just over and over and over again and iterating, and it's just a lot of work, and then hopefully you reach a point that people look at it and go, this feels really good. But there's no like shortcut. It's just a ton of work, like just more work than you think is reasonable.
How often do like players discover combos that you and play test it or something, and you just like, oh wow?
I mean, at this point, not very much anymore, but the players definitely do that, especially like especially initially when you're like creating content, you like kind of shotgun create an enormous amount of stuff, and then you'll like cull it down, and then you test it out, and then they're gonna see combos before you do, because the players just are significantly more incentivized and more focused on doing that. All of their attention is on how to break it, and I'm doing like 10,000 other things. So, okay, we got
cool. One question from me, and then one from maybe Andrew. I want to go back a little bit to the testing thing that you mentioned, and maybe Danielle, you were pretty instrumental in like building up this kind of like metrics testing framework. Can you say more about that? Because my understanding is actually like, having talked to you before, like that piece is kind of like part of the secret of what makes Slay the Spire development so good and what makes the end product so good. So how do you think about the testing and the like feedback and all of that?
Do you mean the metrics collection, or do you mean like our testing pipelines?
I think more the metrics collection from Slay the Spire 1. Yeah.
Yeah. So originally we did that on a beach trip, just talking together, and so we were in the kitchen of this like Airbnb my mom rented, and I set up an instance. I was working for Splunk at the time, and so I set up like a little like free instance, and we were playing around with that. And then, but that didn't really capture like the kind of dashboards we needed, which were much more like kind of data science-y. And so, because it was more about like log parsing. So we ended up rolling our own, and yeah, it's just like a MongoDB database that we dump a bunch of JSON into it, and then we'll just make queries across them. What's nice about Mongo is that you can cap them, and so with like a production database, with like production, like we get like a lot of metrics and like a fire hose, and so you can like you can specify like the number of documents you want per version, kind of thing, and very easily cap that.
Yeah, and the fire hose metaphor is apt. Like we can just, especially at this point, we can just like turn it on and just get infinitely more data than I'm able to use.
And then it's still the same system from when you built it?
Yeah, basically. Wow. Yeah. I mean, there are little differences and things, but it costs a little more money to run now. But yeah, I think it is a big part of our, I don't know if it's our secret sauce, but a big part of how we were able to make things work is just actually getting all of this data and being able to look at it and see how it changes as we make changes and updates, because sometimes there's intuitions you'll have that are actually wrong. Like we have an internal, we had this for STS1 too. It was Slack then, now it's Discord, but we have an internal playtest server where all of our internal playtesters are. And sometimes our internal playtesters would think something's totally broken. And I go and I look at the data and I'm like, I don't know, it actually seems okay. And so, and you'd be surprised how often things like that crop up. But actually, like looking at the data and seeing what it shows is incredibly informative. And I don't think I could do it without it, or at the very least, it would be much worse. So I'm always encouraging other indie devs to take heavy data-driven approaches. So
I think building your own tools for your own like specific use case is like I would very much encourage that, because you can just endlessly kind of tweak it for your whatever your like niche is, especially for something integral like that.
Yeah, and it's probably really easy to do these days, honestly.
Yeah, and, yeah, these days.
But a lot of how it was driven was I would have a question and then we would start collecting a metric to answer that question. So it was very much like, okay, we took the obvious stuff, like, okay, let's look at how much players are picking these cards or winning with these cards. And then whenever I would come up with another question, we would just add the metric for it or add the dashboard for it or whatever we needed. So.
Yeah, I very much vibe with that. Like building your own tools is really helpful. You know, like Waypoint. I guess we didn't build it. Lightcone team built it, but that kind of thing for our own conference, I think, makes things like a lot better. I think I promised a question back to Andrew over there. So the question is: design thoughts on infinite decks versus pile decks.
Okay, so to start, for all of the infinite deck lovers out there who will be watching this in the future, infinite decks are totally valid and fine, and I have nothing wrong with them. I just think that it's at its most interesting when you have to work for it and you don't just like easily, trivially get it every run. It's more fun if it's hard to get, and then it can be like the capstone of your run. But if it becomes the dominant strategy, I think it just compresses away all of the interestingness for me. That was how I thought about an STS1. It's how I think about it in STS2. Yeah. So and that's my approach. So unfortunately, some people disagree, but that's okay. So.
Question from Waypoint. For both of you, I'm curious. What is your win rate, and how does that compare to maybe the best players, for example?
Oh God, okay. So I don't even know what my win rate is anymore. I mean, I don't really play the game for fun at this point. Like, I think just my Steam logged hours on the game, like at launch, were over 3,000, and let me tell you, that was like an underestimation by a lot, because for most of our development we were not on Steam. So I'm not really just sitting down and playing Slay the Spire as an experience. Like, that is not really it. I am certainly stronger than the average player. I am certainly weaker than the best players in the world, right? Like Jorbs or someone like that is gonna just completely destroy me, because his approach to the game is different. Like, that's his job, is to play the game. Whereas, I'm always thinking about how I can change things and design, and so I don't know what my win rate is. I mean, that's the honest answer, but.
Yeah, I mean, same. I have probably thousands of hours, but I basically just set it up, or I just, start it, navigate to some room or something, repro a bug, and then go and fix it.
But between the two of you, do you have a sense of who is a stronger player?
Oh, me, for sure.
Are there any games in which, Danielle, you are the stronger player?
Like non-Slay the Spire games?
Yeah.
Oh, Space Station 13.
Factorio. Games like that.
Factorio.
Nice. Question from the audience over there. George, what is a platonic ideal win rate if you could play perfectly but not know the RNG?
I see. So with perfect play, I would prefer that the win rate is very high. STS1 had it pretty good, where like the best players towards the end of not the end of its life, because it's still super popular, but by the time we launched STS2, the best players were reaching very high win rates, and it took a lot of work to find a seed that is actually like a forced loss. That is my preference. I don't know that I have an exact number. I think more the vibe is that I want it so that the best players can win a lot, and as they get better, this should keep growing. And especially for weaker players, I want winning at the highest levels of difficulty to be very rare. So in STS1, the win rate for A20, not including the heart, this is without the heart, was like about 3%. And so STS2 is much easier than STS1, actually, at the highest level. But I really like that. I like hard games. I think it's, for me, I want a game to be something that's like I feel was worth beating, was actually a challenge, and I like pushed myself. That is what I like as a player, and that's what Casey likes as a player too, my co-founder. So that's our approach.
The people want spoilers. Is there any info you can share about a new character? Or no is fine.
No. There will be at least one more character.
Ooh. Question from the audience, Aaron. Does the existence of the modding community influence the game, such as for design of co-op multiplayer?
So modding is something we're trying to support. We should actually have full workshop support soon, hopefully. And we actually have a bunch of modders in our internal playtest Discord, and we've been working with them to try to make the game like good for modding. But in terms of like, does it impact my design? No. I'm not going to like not make a piece of content because it will make modders' life harder, or vice versa. I want to make the game as good as it can be without mods, and then I really believe that the modders can figure basically anything out. Like, so the capabilities of the modders I believe in is like really high, and I'm not super worried about it. In terms of multiplayer, I'm actually surprised. I feel like multiplayer and mods work pretty well from what I've seen so far already. There's been like a lot of stuff. I think people have already like removed the player cap, and so you can have like more players and stuff like that. And like they're already doing all kinds of stuff because it's kind of trivial to like just actually get the code. And when you have that level of control, you can like do whatever you want. So from my perspective, I don't know how you feel about it, but the modders can just do whatever. So
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty impressed with how adaptable the modders are. There's been things where I've been like kind of worried about that turned out not to be an issue.
Do you have like a favorite mod in mind? Or one that you just really liked?
In Slay the Spire 1, my favorite one was the googly eyes mod, where someone went in and would hand place little googly eyes on like every card and every enemy and stuff, and like all over the place. In Slay the Spire 2, one of the really cool ones I've seen so far is someone took, actually no, the modder, but they took all of the Slay the Spire 1 content, so like the original levels, and they put that into STS2. And I've seen some streamers go through and they're like fighting STS1 content with, with STS2 characters and ancients and all that. And that's been really interesting to see. So just kind of like very cool from a developer perspective to see how the content interfaces.
One of the earliest mods I saw that still impresses me to this day, it was this guy added, I forget his name, but he added a train boss, and it had full parallax, and like you fight the boss and he like knocks you, he's like the conductor, and he knocks you onto the train, and then like the whole background like slides away, and it was just like kind of a cool experience.
I think you might be biased about that because of how much you like trains.
I do like trains.
Slight bias.
One question I'm very curious about is, how did the like emotional experience of building Slay the Spire 1 differ from building Slay the Spire 2? Which one did you enjoy more building?
Oh, I enjoyed Slay the Spire 1 way more. I mean, there's just something, it's a very different experience when you're like a plucky indie doing like this artistic thing, and you don't know if it's going to succeed or not. And then you get like when we launched STS1, I remember we actually had a conversation. I've told some people this before, but we had a conversation a little bit before we launched, and we were walking down the street in the Seattle area, and I said, man, it would be really great if we could sell this many units such that quitting my software job wasn't the worst financial decision in my life. Because, most indie games fail. The expectation for a random indie game is not good. And, we were doing something really experimental, like a card game, like is there even an audience for that? I don't know. And so going from that to like the surreal like explosion and snowball as it kept building and building and building, like that was crazy. But with Slay the Spire 2, you have all of the expectations, right? And so it's a very different emotional thing where you're building a sequel to some of like, a game that is many people's favorite game. And, it's also still a very surreal experience, but the emotion is very different. And like the whole cadence of that's very different. We went from completely zero marketing and anything like that to, oh, well, now we're getting like interviews and everyone wants to know about us. And like, we have to think about like, okay, are we hitting like these beats and getting trailers out in time? And all of that is it's interesting to experience all of it. Like, I'm glad that I've done it, but absolutely working on the first one was more fun.
I would agree. Yeah. The first one was a lot simpler. It was nice when it was like smaller. So.
Question over there.
Yeah, so I feel like one thing I noticed playing Slay the Spire 1 versus 2 is one felt like very sharp in the sense that like if I'm silent, I'm like, oh, I cannot click on this elite or I'm about to get exploded if I don't have enough things in my deck. Obviously, the boss in Act 1 really shapes how you're building. Slay the Spire 2, this could be a skill issue, so I'm not familiar enough with the card pool and the enemies yet, but it does feel more like I can just do something and it's going to kind of interact with most enemies the same way. Is that like a conscious decision? You could also just disagree. What do you think?
I think it's not that extreme, but there's more degrees of freedom in 2, I think, because of like the enchantment system, because of like the ancients give you a lot more variance in how your power can spike. And so some of these systems, while I'm happy with them on net, they do have interactions like this where you kind of have the extra degrees of freedom make for like a slightly less tight experience. I mean, part of it is just, in 1, it's like it is you're exploring the design space and you're hitting like the low-hanging fruit stuff. You're hitting like the stuff that kind of has to exist. And with a sequel, you're expanding upon it. So you're by its very nature, you are kind of looking into the space where it's less tight, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and maybe a question back there too. Question is, how do you approach more invested players versus new players?
Yeah. Okay. So, and in particular, it was how do you handle when they want different things, right? So, this happens a lot. So, like right now, if you watch some of the top like Slay the Spire 2 streamers, they're like, the game is not hard enough. I want it to be harder. I want like more ascensions or a harder difficulty mode or something. And then if you look at like the average Reddit user or whatever, the average Ascension 0 player, they're like, this game is so hard. And these can both be true at once. It can be too hard for the new player and not hard enough for the experienced player. But so that line of threading that is something that we even had to do that in Slay the Spire 1. Like when we launched, actually, I don't remember if we launched with the Ascension system at all.
We didn't.
Yeah, and then we like added it slowly over time. Like I think we initially did just the first 10, and then we went to 15, and then we went from 15 to 20 because I was watching a Jorb stream where he was like on a 100% win rate streak of like an insane amount, and he's like, I don't know, this game's too easy, and I was like, all right, let's do it. So, and I think over time I can expand that high end stuff for the experienced player, but because they are a minority and like like the Jorbs level player is like a fraction of a percent, right? So they do matter, but I think it's a little more important to hit the average player first, for sure. And trying that is another needle that I just have to thread over time, and hopefully I can satisfy both player groups. And that's something that with early access I can approach solutions for both groups.
Because this is manifest, I kind of want to dig into the incentive structure a little bit, where based on what you were kind of saying, it's good for Slay the Spire to be able to appeal to a very wide range of players to sell copies, because it's like a buy it once for $25. Is that right?
I think so. I think something like that.
Yeah. Is there any sense in which a different economic model was something you considered? One in which a super fan like Jorbs perhaps would be paying you guys more, and then you might be more interested in building content that caters to them. I don't know.
Okay, so the honest answer is I do not like these kind of these other models. I don't like them as a player, and I don't really like the idea of them just kind of philosophically. They would probably make me more money. But I have actually received feedback in our feedback submission where some players went, you should make a mode of Slay the Spire where I can pay some amount of money to get all of the cards in a pack or something like that. Like players genuinely wanting me to put microtransactions to make the game easier. And I just read that and I go, you really want that? It's not for me. So it's nothing that we've ever seriously considered. maybe at some point we'll have something where we have like a big DLC thing or something. I'm not sure, but yeah, I prefer you buy it and then you own it.
Question from a Waypoint, and I'm also a little bit worried to ask this one. We might cut it if it's like too risky.
Okay.
But AI art. How do you feel about AI art and other use of like LLM AI stuff in the game development process?
Yeah, we do not use any AI art. I don't think it's a good idea for a game dev to use AI art because purely from a I'll just be totally from a self-interest perspective, people will not like it. They'll be very upset with you.
But do you wish things were different?
No, I don't think so. Well, okay. No, I think it's probably just not a good idea in the short term for a dev to use AI art. I don't know that. Yeah, I don't really want to get into it too much, but I will say in terms of AI, I have like an internal benchmark where whenever a new model comes out, I do try to see like how far along is it to automating my job, right? So I'll put in, I'll be like, okay. I give it, I try different complex prompts and things, and I put a fair amount of effort into it. And I say, you're a Slay the Spire modder. Let's make some new cards. How does it do at this? So far, every new model I've tried is terrible at this task. I even tried with Fable. It was marginally better, but it was still very, very bad. So I currently, at least, it's not encroaching upon my actual like work as a designer. I will say it was very interesting to see in the Fable announcement them talking about Slay the Spire. That was another little surreal moment.
They were using it as like a benchmark for how good Fable was
so
getting.
that was pretty interesting. I won't lie, but yeah, I think currently there is no desire for AI art in any way, shape, or form in the gaming community, and yeah.
All right. Maybe a question all the way in the back over there. Do you study other card games or just tunnel vision on Slay the Spire?
Back in the day, I was a huge card game player. I mean, I grew up playing Magic for forever. I was huge into Netrunner. I played all kinds of card games. Nowadays, because card games are my life and my everything, I really don't play them much anymore. They used to be a source of joy, and now they are just like a bunch of jumbled mechanical pieces in my head. So it's not bringing me the same level of enjoyment. So I will sometimes, like if someone's like, hey, Anthony, there's this really cool game, I'll check it out. Or like if there's a new deck building roguelike with something interesting, I will go play that game for like an hour and think about it. And I'll say, oh, that was interesting. Or I disagree with this, and I will like analyze it from that research perspective. But I'm not like really digging into a thing. It's more just like kind of consuming stuff as a researcher, and maybe I have it in the background, but I'm not like hyper fixated anymore. Whereas I used to be very hyper fixated on card games. Who could have guessed?
Seems a little bit sad almost.
It is sad, yeah.
But is there like any kind of game that both of you would recommend, like that you've recently played?
You can think about that. I don't know, like, because I am just trying random indie games and then experiencing them briefly. The game that I most recently actually played a fair amount was Deadlock, because I was playing it with friends. So because of the friend bond, it was more of like a friend activity. But it's a MOBA, and I don't know, no one should play MOBAs. It's a terrible genre. I'm joking a little bit, but yeah, no, I have not had a game that I really truly got deeply into, except during COVID when I was playing Valheim with my friends, and that was like before I started working on Slay the Spire 2. And we were all enjoying Valheim and playing it together. But usually it's that kind of friend experience that I get the most out of games these days. Otherwise, it's just mechanics and research. So I don't have one.
Yeah, I would say I don't. Usually, if I'm playing games, it's like some sort of multiplayer friend game, like Subnautica 2 recently. I spend like the majority of my time working on Slay the Spire, and so whenever I'm not doing that, I kind of don't want to play other card games. to be honest.
Very reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're working like 80+ hour work weeks, so it's like it's not.
I would have hoped that now that you have a lot of money and like a big team or something like that, you can not do 80-hour weeks. But
You would think, but I don't know. In expanding a studio, you save some time on things, and then you also add time on other things. This is like just a thing that you find out as you expand, because then all of a sudden you're having like one-on-one meetings and stuff like that, right? So there's give and take. It's not just fully a free lunch.
There's very much a coordination overhead that comes with a team.
Yeah, and like if I go from me programming a piece of content to me telling a employee how to do it, I still have to like explain all of it. They can't just read my mind, and they're going to have questions like, oh, what did you mean by this? How is this supposed to interact with this? So just in the back and forth, there's still like there's ultimately some level of friction that you need to solve. So
yeah. So I'm going to end with one question from me, and then hopefully you'll be hanging around for a few more minutes, and people can maybe just come up and talk. What are you looking forward to over the next year or so? Either like one thing in the like Slay the Spire work wise, and one thing on like a more personal level.
I am looking forward to eventually being able to port Slay the Spire to other devices. A lot of people tell me, "Oh, I only play Slay the Spire on the phone. When is it going to happen?" And we're waiting till the end of early access, but I am really looking forward to it, because I know so many people really, really want to interface with Spire, not just on their computer. And I'm also excited for a bunch of the content we have planned, like the alternate acts and things like that. Some of the stuff we've talked about. So there are like big moments that are coming up that I am very excited for. And whenever that happens, I think it will like feel very good. But yeah, but there's still, it's like a long, it's still a long grind with lots to go. So there's not like a giant single thing. It's just, I see lots of little steps.
Yeah. I mean, that's, yeah.
I think you're happy when we're finally done.
Yeah, I'm going to be happy to complete that roadmap.
What about personally? Anything that outside of work you're excited for?
Yeah, I am really excited to travel more. Like as things come down, I do love travel. I think interestingly, in the universe where there's no COVID, I'm not sure that STS2 ever happened. I think it probably wouldn't actually. We were kind of living in Japan when COVID happened, and then we came back to the States. And I think it was because we were so bored sitting at home during a pandemic that we were like, well, why don't we do this game design thing again? Like, it was, and it was like just natural. Like, okay, well, let's get back to it. Let's actually make something again. But I would like to do travel again, so that'd be fun. And you, Danielle?
Yeah, same. It'd be nice to have hobbies and stuff too. Again.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for traveling here to join us for this weekend at least. Can we have a big round of applause for Anthony and Danielle?